Welcome to the Just Trust the Process podcast, where faith, fortitude, and fierce determination collide to change the world. I'm bringing you the conversations that help you to trust God through the process, learn how to enjoy the process, and relax in the confidence that you will make it to your promised land. I'm your girl, Alisha J, and I'm here to help you pursue your purpose with passion and perseverance without losing your panache. Hey, it's your girl, Alisha J, and y'all are here on Just Trust the Process. And I am so excited because I have Candace Junée, who I love so dearly. She is amazing, and I'm just so grateful that she's here. She is an international speaker, Christian business coach, and world changer. She helps faith-based women all over the globe own their message to walk in their purpose and their divine calling. As the CEO of Epic Fab Girl and her Go-Getter movement has inspired countless women to take charge by being a woman of faith in business so kingdom can be recognized in every arena. Celebrated by the top brands, the Obama Foundation, Glamour Magazine, and Essence, Candace has helped over 25,000 entrepreneurs and women grow their businesses, increase their visibility, and live to courageously live out their dreams. But before we welcome Candace, let's shout out to our sponsor, Unmarried Without Children. Listen, ladies, have you ever felt overlooked or misunderstood because you're not married or don't have children? Unmarried Without Children is the book you need. In this powerful guide, I dive into the unique journey of women like us who are living out God's purpose in our own way and in our own time. Whether you're focusing on your career, your calling, or navigating the path to motherhood, Unmarried Without Children will inspire you to walk confidently in your God-given identity. Grab your copy today and let's thrive together right where God has you or on your journey to all He has for you, including the possibility of motherhood. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all things Alisha J. And also, if you are married with children, you can buy the book too. It's for you too, or buy one for your unmarried friend. Everybody gets a copy. You get a book, you get a book, everybody gets a book. All right? Just make sure y'all go and check it out. All right. Y'all, welcome to today Epic Fab Girl Go-Getter Conference. Global, international. She's been all over the world and just traveling the country this year. I've seen her in London. I'm waiting for her to pop up in Africa somewhere. Like, I'm just waiting to see it. She has done such a phenomenal job at encouraging and helping women walk confidently in their God-given purpose. So, y'all, let's welcome Candace in. Candace, thank you for coming. Super excited to have you today. And if y'all didn't hear me in the intro, she is one of my business coaches, and she has helped me so much to put together my framework to help other women and to also identify what my purpose is in life. So thank you, Candace. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
I love it. Thank you so much. First of all, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to just share my story on your platform. So thank you.
Thank you.
That was such a lovely intro and welcome. But a little bit about me, especially on podcasts, I like to, y'all heard my bio, but I like to share a little bit more about myself. I really am like a God's girl, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
I just love the Lord, and I always have. And I know that might sound a little like why she being so churchy, but it's like that really is like, it's like that's such a huge part of my life. And I feel like there's a part, there was seasons of my life where I didn't let that lead at the forefront, but like spirituality and my relationship with God is literally everything to me.
Yes.
And I think about all of the, success and, the wins and the amazing like accolades and all the things that I've ever been able to achieve. I just like, of course, none of it would have been possible without God, but like the thing that regardless of what my life looks like behind the scenes, whether, things feel like they're good or bad, like the one thing that always keeps me grounded is my relationship with God. And it's the one thing that gives me peace. So I am a God's girl. I love to, I love to encourage and empower people. Like that's a big thing for me. I'm definitely very analytical, which is why I love business coaching. I love to see people thrive. I love to push people past their like, comfort zone so that they can be their best versions of themselves. But outside of that, I love like working out, which is crazy, but I enjoy it. I love being active. I love riding my bike on the lake in Chicago. Like
Oh, I
I'm
love
like
that.
a girl that I really appreciate balance, but I also love my family. Like I have a lot of close family here in Chicago, and I love seeing them grow up and just be, nurtured and shaped in a way that is meaningful. So like I'm a girl that, yes, I have achieved a lot in business and I'm a business coach and, we help Christian women scale their businesses to six figures and beyond. But like, there's so much more to my life than that. And there's so much more that I'll do beyond what I've already done.
Absolutely. So yes, y'all heard it here. Listen, she's a boss, but she like to ride her bike around the lake in Chicago, and she loves her family. So I love that you have that balance or that harmony. I don't know what word we're throwing out anymore, but I love that you make sure that you are taking care of who Candace is. You talking about working out, making sure that you are well is a huge part of confidence, right? And so, what does being bold and courageous look like to you? And I use that specific phrase
I know, because
specifically
I'm already
because
grabbing
see, I
my
knew she was gonna be ready.
listen, okay. I have an incredible book called Bold and Courageous.
Yes.
But no, I think that, you know, to do anything that is worth doing and achieving, you have to have courage. And I think about like, especially when you're getting ready to start something, I think when you're getting ready to start something new, a lot of times there's so many things that make you afraid because you're afraid of the unknown. You're afraid that you'll fail. You're afraid maybe that like what happens when success comes. Like, so it requires you to have some level of courage to be able to um it requires you for you to have some level of courage to essentially be able to like um go after your dreams and the things that you desire. And I think for me, confidence is extremely important in so many areas, not just from like confidence on a platform like this. Like there may have been a time in the past where I wouldn't have been as confident sharing my story and talking, or like I might have showed up on camera looking a little timid,
Mhm.
right? Like I think that confidence plays a role in so many things. And I think it plays a huge role in and just showing up in the authority that God has given you, right? Like it plays a huge role in like all of the responsibilities and the things that you're supposed to step out and do. Whether it's like launching a business, growing a business, writing a book, like whatever that may be, or if you're on a corporate job and like taking on a new role that might be scary, like whatever that may be, like courage is required. And I think that, and kind of the premise of what I talk about in the book is really that like it takes courage to be your full, true, authentic self and showing up in that, because a lot of times like when we find ourselves lacking courage, it can come from a place of like we're questioning if we are enough. And then if that internal war isn't won, then like we won't ever be able to achieve the things that we're, called to achieve. But then sometimes people may struggle with like courage because of like external fears and things like that. And fear, aspects of fear are good, to help, you not get hurt. But I think there's some like fears that are just like unreasonable and they don't make sense. But a lot of times that stems from internal stuff that is causing you to think that whatever thing may be ahead of you, like, is something that would hinder you from having success. And so I think it's incredibly important to be confident and bold and courageous so that you can be not just the best version of yourself for yourself, but for the world. And so that you can have the impact that God has called you to have on the earth.
I love that. I love that you said that, fear can keep us from being our authentic self. And not only that, I believe like, and then you were kind of pointing towards this, but I think sometimes people pleasing keeps us from being courageous because we're thinking about what others are thinking about us. And so we want to make sure that when we show up in the room, we're making everybody else comfortable, but we're not showing up as our authentic self because of that. And so I love that you touched on that. And so a part of your journey, Candace, and I know, a lot of your backstory that you share so openly, which helps us to build trust with you, right? Um, Tell us a little bit about your backstory of going from corporate America to going to entrepreneurship, because you were living your best blessed life, and then God was like, "You right?"
Yeah. It's funny because I recently celebrated 7 years of full-time entrepreneurship, which is
Wow!
like crazy to think
Congratulations!
about, but thank you. Um, but I mean, I think what I'll say is that back in 2017, when I quit my job, I feel like people were talking about quitting their jobs, but a lot of people hadn't. So like
Hmm.
full-time entrepreneurship wasn't really like it was kind of like people would look at you crazy if you're like, I'm gonna quit my job to have a business, right? And there weren't a ton of people around me that had done it. And I had like one friend that I knew was a full-time entrepreneur. And that friend wasn't even a woman. Like it was like, so for me to like launch out and be like, okay, I'm gonna, quit my job and just trust that God is gonna provide, like that was a lot. And so for me, because I worked in corporate and I had a six-figure job and I had that job for 3 years, and I saw the consistency of like seeing checks come in, and I saw the
Hmm.
consistency of like being able to build my credit and buy a house and like pretty much get any and everything that I wanted, that I needed financially. For me, it was a big risk to like walk away from a job that provided that level of like security. And the thing for me was knowing that God was pulling me off of that job. I think that I would not have jumped ship and like quit if it weren't for like God just being so clear with me that he was calling me to something different. But it was a scary leap of faith. Like it took a lot of just trusting God, many conversations with God, questioning, am I crazy? Like, because the big thing for me was like, how can I tell the difference between like crazy faith versus just like, walking in wisdom? Because I felt like
Yeah, that's good.
like you want to count the cost. I don't want to just quit a job and not have a backup plan, which is what
Right.
I kind of did. But it was just like you have to bet on yourself. And so for me, I feel like there have been little pieces along the way and along the journey, like step by step, that have just been proof to me that like that was the right decision to make. And even when things got tough, I knew that I was called to this, and God didn't necessarily want me to go back to a corporate job in a traditional way or in a traditional setting. So that's kind of what I've had to lean on over the past 7 years of knowing like, okay, what God wanted me to do. But ultimately, I think it was a big, sh- like not struggle, but it was a big leap of faith to make. To say, what, I'm just gonna bet on myself. And I'm really grateful that I did, because there's so much fruit that came from me being obedient to God and just trusting that He was gonna have my back and trusting that He was gonna provide. And that same courage that it took for me to quit the job is the same courage that's needed to get up every day and like trust that God is gonna provide for my life and business day after day, even 7 years in.
So talk about that a little bit more of what does that trust look like? Because this is just Trust the Process podcast. So so trusting the process, what did that look like for you? Because I know, you know, people may see like the great things that are posted on Instagram and social media where you're getting, you're in essence, you're recognized by the Obama Foundation, you are making deals with Smart Water, you are going to Europe and speaking. And but what is behind the veil of that, and how is that trusting that and trusting God through that process? What is that like?
Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely talk a lot about it in the book Bold and Courageous, but like one of the big things is like things not looking perfect behind the scenes. So like a big part of my story is that, between 2018 and 2019, because I quit my job in 2017, 2018 and 2019 basically was just a time where even though I was making money in business, it wasn't like I was making enough to be able to like really sustain a lifestyle that I knew that I needed. And like I hadn't gotten back to the lifestyle that I had when I had quit, had the job. And in that it was still being consistent. Like I still had to be consistent, still show up, even though like my bank account didn't look the way that I wanted it to. And then by 2019, I just kind of hit a really rough patch where things got really, really tight financially, like in the fall of 2019. And it was like really depressing to the point like my car was repossessed. My house ended up getting foreclosed on, or not, like I ended up getting foreclosure papers served, so like the foreclosure didn't go through that year, but like I got served foreclosure papers, and that was like a very like difficult time
Yeah,
to walk through
yeah,
and question and ask God like, okay, well, if you told me to quit my job because you knew that I would be successful financially, like why, would you let me like go into a place where my house is at risk of foreclosure?
right.
And it just was really stressful. But I think the trusting the process for me was like I had prayed prior to all of that, and God, like, because I would always be like, God, just make sure I don't lose my house. Like,
Yeah.
just I don't want to lose my house. Like, please. So I remember God telling me specifically, because I had a closet, like a prayer closet in that house. And I would have these like, papers that I would have all written on the wall. And I would just hear from God, and I would like tape it to the wall and be like, all right, that's going to stay there. This is going to be a reminder. And one of those reminders was like, God was like, Candace, you're not going to lose your house. Like, you're just not going to lose your house. And so I had to hang tight on to that promise, because I was just like, yeah, like if God said I was going to lose my house, I'm not going to lose my house. So that's why, I just made the best decisions that I could potentially make during that time. And then I ended up, when I was served those foreclosure papers, it didn't, that didn't take the gut wrenching punch to my gut. Like that feeling was still there. I was like, I had questions and I was wondering, I'm like, but God, you said I wasn't going to lose my house. And my perspective at that time was like, God, you said I wasn't going to lose my house. Why would you let me get a foreclosure notice? But when reality, like God is like, girl, I told you you wasn't going to lose your house. So why are you worried? Like,
Right.
and by that next year, because of the pandemic, and foreclosures like had to be like paused, they legally couldn't move forward with it. So it was like I
Good.
saw the way that God's hand moved on my
Yeah.
behalf. Like I did my part, I aligned with what he said, and then I let him do the rest. And I had to really hang on to that. And by 20, I think, what did I end up? Yeah, by 2022, was that 2022? No, by 2021, by July of 2021, I sold the house, didn't lose the house. It sold right days before the foreclosure was supposed to like go up in auction for the court. It was like, and someone bought it. And it just was such an incredible blessing for me, because I just saw how God is going to make good on every single promise. And so trusting the process means like, I really felt like it really is about trusting God in the process, right? Because the process, if you put your trust in the process, you're gonna be stressed out. You're gonna be like, because it's circumstantial. But the one thing that remains the same and never changes is God. And I think sometimes we can get into these moments of like, well, God, how are you good in this? It's like, well, he sustained you. You've had
Mhm.
everything that you need up until today. Like, he's provided for you. Like, why not lean on that? And so that has been something that I've had to lean on over the years, because that happened in 2021. But there's so many other things in my life that I'm holding fast to based off of what God said to me.
Yeah.
And I'm just having to like stand firm on what he said and trust that if he said it, it's going to come to pass. So I think it's really about trusting God in the process, and trusting that even when you may get to low points, that doesn't mean that God didn't say what he said.
I love that, Candace. Especially what you said, your last statement. Even if you're going through low points, that doesn't negate what God said. And I know
out here when we in the process, it be looking real ghetto.
Very
like
disrespectful.
we like, all right, Lord, I'm trusting you. And I think that's something you have to constantly tell yourself and tell God, I trust you. I trust you, God, because what it looks like, it ain't looking like you said it's supposed to be looking, but I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. And so thank you for sharing that piece of getting to where God is leading you, and then also reminding the viewers and the listeners that God's faithfulness is unmatched, right? Because he'll say something and it's not going to look like the straight path that you thought it was going to look like. It's that meme that's on Instagram, right? Where it's like the path is going this way and then you got this jagged thing and then you plateau for a second and then you dipping back down. That is truly what trust in the process is trusting God, like you said. And so I love it, love it, love it, love it. So you've gone through, having businesses, shutting down businesses, starting conferences, launching products, seeing products that launched that were successful, seeing products that launched that weren't as successful as you wanted them to be. What keeps you going to continue as an entrepreneur, especially now in this season where it seems like a lot of entrepreneurs are saying, things are kind of slowing down for a lot of us. So what is it that keeps you motivated?
I think ultimately you have to understand that entrepreneurship is a journey and that nothing have to last forever. Like, listen, I think some people are so tied to the concept of like I will always be an entrepreneur. That don't mean I'm always be running the same business, right? That doesn't always. So I think it's okay that some people are throwing in the towel, like because maybe it's like the season for it is up. Like there
Right.
might be something else better on the other side. And so I say that because it's like you don't want to get so tied to a business that you miss out on the reason that God called you to start the business, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's
that
good.
purpose may still always be there, right? Like for me, the things that I hold to is like the things that of like my whys of like, okay, I know I'm called to impact people's lives. I know I'm called to help people grow deeper in Christ. I know I'm called to bring inspiration and all of this stuff, but I'm also called to like help, organizations and business owners like thrive. And the way that I do that in different seasons may look different. And so I think the thing that makes me willing to like not give up is to just understand that like if I don't say yes to what God is telling me to say yes to in the moment, that somebody else is suffering. And
That's
um
good.
yeah, like I
Ooh,
think
that's
that's a
good.
big thing.
That's a
But
big
also
thing.
I feel like outside of like just understanding that there are other people that need what I have on the inside of me, like I think that's a big thing. But then sometimes there's moments where it's like, okay, I know people need me, but I'm like irritated and annoyed and stressed out and I don't want to do this no more.
Right.
And I think that those moments in entrepreneurship are normal. Like people should normalize. Like you're gonna want to throw in the towel at some point. You're gonna want to be like, you know what? Like, let me just do something different. And I think the reason why I still haven't given up is because I know it's purpose. And I think that is the importance of like really building a purpose driven brand and business and not to just be doing and building stuff because you see somebody else building it. It's like, no, I know I'm called to this and
Yeah.
I know this is the assignment that God has for me. So that's why I don't give up because it's like, I refuse to be in disobedience to God. That's my big thing. Like, to be honest, there have been times I wanted to give up. Like Candace wanted to give up, but God was
Right.
like, girl, like you can't go anywhere. So like here you are. Like this is your assignment. And so sometimes you just got to ride the assignment out and, understand that like every season won't be as beautiful as you thought it was going to be, but it's like going to be beautiful because you're in alignment with what God had for you.
Yes. And the saying is there's no better will to be in than the will of God, right? And I love that you said your assignment is important because you really don't know who is assigned to you all the time. And it might be the little thing that is going to help them to keep going, to stay motivated, may even save their lives, right? You just never know what you're going to say or what God is having you to do in that moment. And sometimes it's not the person that you're actually helping. It may be somebody that's watching you help that person that is actually being helped, right? So I love this, love this, love this. Candace, I love this. We're going to take a little break to shout out our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by All Things Alisha J, your one-stop destination for inspiration, empowerment, and all things fabulous. Whether you're looking for motivational content to uplift your spirit, makeup tips and tricks, or resources to help you navigate life's challenges with confidence, All Things Alisha J has you covered. Visit allthingsalisha.com today and join the community of women walking in their God-given purpose, one fabulous step at a time. Thank you, All Things Alisha J. So, Candace, I want to ask you, what is one of the highlights of you being on this journey? And then what is one time that almost broke you while you were on this journey? And I know we kind of talked about, you were in a season and you were just like, oh God, I don't know what's happening. So give us one of the biggest highlights where you were like, all right, God, I see you. And then one of the highlights where you were like, ooh, child.
Yes. One of my biggest highlights, and I usually have it with me, but I'm doing some reorganization of my house, so it's right by me. But one of the big things, that was a really big thing for me was getting featured in Essence magazine. For me, I had this dream of being in Essence, but the dream was more so okay, maybe around 2015, I was like, oh, one day I'll be in Essence magazine. That was like a thing. And then I want to say at the top of 2022, I put Essence on my dream board for the sake of I wanted to speak at Essence Fest, because back when I wrote Essence on that thing, I don't even think I was aware. I was so young and unaware of so many things in the world. I didn't even know if I knew what Essence Fest was back then.
Okay.
So then in 2022, I was like, ooh, I want to speak at Essence Fest or have a brand bring me out and do something, to be in an activation or whatever.
Yes.
And so basically in 2022, I have been very consistent on social media. I had been really just giving my best to the world, online. And in that journey, I grew an audience and a following of people who were very invested in the work that I was doing and, following my journey. And I ended up at an event where a young lady came up to me and we were talking, and she's like, oh, you don't know who I am, but I know who you are. And I work for Essence. And I just remember being like, okay, I just walked out of that place that day being excited because I was like, man, someone from Essence knows who I am, right? That's a big deal to me. But what became much of a bigger deal to me was that same woman ended up reaching out to me about a month later and saying hey, we have a partnership opportunity to do something with Essence and Smart Water next week. We'd love to pay you for this project. So it was outside of for me, it was very mind blowing because I was positioned and being seen as a content creator in my space and being honored for my gift.
Yes.
And but also it was I was able to speak and pour into the audience, but then I also was able to, get featured in the magazine, but also get paid to do it. So it was just one of those Ephesians 3:20 where the Bible talks about exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask, think, or imagine. And for me, that was the exceedingly abundantly above all that I can ask, think, or imagine. And I think that one of the things that I feel was really crushing for me, if we can talk about one of the times where I felt it really crushed me, or I was kind of in a place of lost and I was just confused. Of course, I had the time period where, I had the foreclosure and I had all of that stuff going on. But one of the other things was, I think this was also in the same year. So 2022, I had been building my business and I had been focusing on building my business. I had two different businesses at the time, and one of the businesses was doing so well. It was on track to really hitting really great numbers. It was just getting bigger, better, and more amazing. And in the middle of 2022, it was kind of things started to slow down in a way that it was no, things didn't start to slow down. God told me to stop taking clients. That was what happened.
Okay.
God was like, yeah, stop taking clients. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I had made a decision to stop taking clients. But like right before that, I had just signed like my highest ticket client that paid in full. And this person paid in full $15,000. And I was like so excited. Like
Yes, right?
I was like, yes, paid in full. I deserve to get paid well. Boom, boom, bam. Thank you, ma'am. Like it was all good. But shortly after, that client filed a fraudulent chargeback. And for those who don't know what that means, that basically means that like, you know, the money came through to your account, like, you know, they paid for their service after whatever said service was had and given, despite like the contracts and things that were put in place. There was a there basically was, you know, the person called their bank and complained for whatever reason and then asked for their money back, even though we have a no refund policy.
Yeah.
And it was just a lot. It was like, it was just such a crushing moment for me because I was like, the audacity of another Black woman to do this to me, and also the audacity of a Black woman who identified as Christian, like to do this to me. And like, it just was one of those moments where I was just like, okay, God, like, can I go back to fighting in the streets because I want to snatch this girl by the head and mollywop her all across town? Have her address, and do she not know that I will pull up and like be at her house? But I was just like, the girl lived in Atlanta and I knew exactly where she lived. So I was just like, you know, I need therapy because like I need to talk myself out of what I'm about to do to her. And for me, I say all this to say that like you know, one thing the Bible says, get angry but sin not. Okay. Baby, I was angry.
Yeah.
I didn't sin. Like I had to talk it through. I wasn't gonna pull up at that girl house, even though I wanted to.
Even though you
right,
wanted
like deep down in my soul. But I had to go through a season of like, okay, let me actually forgive this girl. Like I had to do what I didn't want to do. I had to forgive her. I had to pray for her. I had to pray that God would bless her business. Like, and I wasn't over there praying them witchcraft prayers of like, Lord, I pray that you would curse everything like in her, you know, like I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'm going to pray, Lord, bless this girl. You know, clearly she has no idea. Like, cause she, you know, she spent that, she paid that money. And, you know, it was maybe like a month after she paid that money that she, you know, got did the charge dispute. And when with the charge dispute, they take that money out of your account. So they withdrew $15,000. Yeah, girl. So that's why I was like, it was very disrespectful. Withdrew $15,000 out of this account. And this is right when God tells me to stop taking clients. So I'm like, do you not see that the Stripe account is overdraft? Like Stripe kept trying to take the money out of the account, but it wasn't enough in our business bank account. With my consulting company, it wasn't enough money because we had stopped taking clients. Like, so it was like, what do you mean? Like, we're like what is happening? So it just was like a very crazy time in my life where I had to be like, okay, God, how are you in this? And one of the things I have had to learn is that every negative thing that happens, especially in business, is usually like preparing you for something else, baby, because now my contracts are locked and loaded. Now I know exactly what to do you know, if somebody want to act crazy, like we don't have to, like I have an attorney that's ready with a response on how, you know, like and because I've gone through, you know, seasons of wondering like, should I sue this girl? And, you know, if I want to, I can, because the statute of limitations still allows room for me to be able to circle back and run my money. It'd be like, girl, run me my money.
Right.
But I think there were a lot of very positive lessons that I had to learn out of it that taught me as an entrepreneur ways to protect myself. And so while it was a very crushing period of time, it was also a time where I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for that, because had I not learned that extremely difficult lesson in that season, you know, it would have been, you know, like I just wouldn't have been prepared. And so it's funny because when I finally ended up getting paid out by the Essence project, because it was like a 5-figure contract that ended up covering the cost of like the overdraft of like what that client did not have. So it's like, it was like a bittersweet year for me, because I was like, yes, I got this 5-figure contract, but it's like I didn't really get to see the fruit of it because it ended up going back into that deficit that was there. But I was grateful that I finally was able to get out of the deficit because of that opportunity. So in me saying all of this, my prayer is to those who are listening, like, don't ever just be looking at what somebody got going on the internet and just being like, I wish I had their life. Because it's like, you don't know what they doing behind the scenes. You don't know what they have to struggle through. You don't know what they have to fight through. You don't know what they're up against. And, I'm not saying in any way that I live a lie, but like, we all know, like, I'm the type of person, I share a testimony after it's done. So if I'm going through, you would never know. But it's like, don't have yourself in a place where you feel like you gotta, be don't have yourself in a place where you feel like you gotta compare yourself to everybody else. And the other thing I want to say really quickly too is like, because as you're talking about, like, trust the process, like when you're going through the process, let the process be the process and share the testimony later. Like, some people get so, like, I'm very careful about when I'm going through in certain seasons. And if I'm in a certain mood, I'm not posting on the internet, because there are days when I want to get on the internet and be like, and complain. There are days when I want to get on the internet and be like, I hate that I can't get access to capital. Or like, I could, go on the internet and, complain and be like, business is so hard. It sucks. Like, things are slow right now. It's like, I'm not about to get on the internet and do that. Why? Because I have to understand that in the same way that the platform that God has given me, like, I have to honor that platform in a way where it's not like I'm being fake, but I also have to understand that if I'm called to encourage people, what do I look like getting on the internet and being negative? Like, that does not make sense. That is actually counterproductive to the purpose that God placed me on this earth for.
Yeah.
So yes, we have our bad days. Yes, we have our moments where we're, whatever. But for me, I have to protect my space and be careful about when I'm not in the best mood or my head isn't in the right space. I'm not out there trying to create content on the internet, because that energy will fuel and feed into other people.
Absolutely. And it also goes against your brand.
Exactly.
100%, right? So I love that you shared, like, there's this duality, right? That was going on in that season, where it's like, I'm having the best and the worst time at the same time, right? It's like, I got this thing with Essence, but now, I can't really enjoy the money that I'm getting from Essence. But God set you up because he knew homegirl was about to sue you and you was going to need this money. Well, not sue you, but she was going to get that charge back and you were going to need this money to cover it. And I know sometimes we're like, all right, God, I would have really liked to have had that in the bank account, but I appreciate you looking out for your girl, right?
Yeah. Because I didn't, I also had the belief that, like, sometimes, back then I feel like I was a little bit more, like, I'm a very optimistic person in general. Like, and I'm a benefit of the doubt type of person. Like, I'm going to assume that, like, the best in other people. And so I probably would have never thought that, like, people that even identify as Christian or, are so-called sweet on the internet, like, I just always assume, like, no, people are good. They mean well. And it's like, no, like, I had to learn that hard lesson of, like, not everybody who ascribes to what not everybody who says they ascribe to what you ascribe to actually ascribe to that. And that somebody can identify as a Christian and lack integrity.
This is fast. And one thing I love about the church that I go to now, is that our pastors are very big on building you as an integrous person, making sure that your character is right. Because we may mention a lot that, we run into Christians all the time that are mean, just mean. What you mean for? If you have the love of Christ, if this is what the love of Christ is, I don't want the love of Christ because you just mean. Like, I didn't know Christ was mean. So I love that there's a generation that is being taught, and not to say that there aren't other generations that were taught this, because a lot of Christians have character, so please do not misuse my words, internet people. But there are that this generation is learning how to love and have character that is based on how Jesus handled people, right? So just being a believer, you should always be kind. And I know sometimes it's hard to to do that. Listen, we are all human and we people. So, we get it. But, lead with kindness, and you just never know what the reaction will be. And so, Candace, I appreciate your vulnerability today. It is very refreshing. It's always encouraging and inspiring. I know that even as an entrepreneur, going through my own journey, it has continuously encouraged me to stay on the path, to keep going, and to keep encouraging others to keep going as well. So this journey, y'all, it may not be easy, but it's so worth it at the end of the day. So just y'all keep going. So Candace, where can we find you? How can we get in contact with you? Where are you on social media? What's your website? Tell us more about your book, and before we conclude today's podcast.
Yes. So you can find me online at Candace Junée everywhere. So CandaceJunee. And also Epic Fab Girl is our brand. So EpicFabGirl. You can find my book, Bold and Courageous. So just on Amazon, you can find that. Just go to Amazon, search Bold and Courageous Candace, and I should pop up, and it's an orange picture on there, me with a top on. So you will definitely be able to catch that. But I look forward to staying connected with all of y'all. One of the resources that I know most people love from our community is our it's 100 Bible verses to pray over your business.
Yes.
So that's a really great way to get plugged into our community. But if you just go to gogettermembership.com/100, so gogettermembership.com/the numerical number 100, you will be able to get 100 Bible verses that you can pray over your business. And then that way you can get connected into our community, get connected into some of our prayer calls that we do every Monday. And there's that. But thank you so much for having me.
Yes. No, thank you, Candace. I appreciate you so much. This really has blessed us. We are going to be out here being bold and courageous women of God, walking in purpose. So thank you so much. And what an incredible conversation we had with Candace today. It was just such an inspiring and encouraging message, and her wisdom and experiences are going to truly inspire us and uplift us all. And of course, a special shout out to our amazing sponsors, All Things Alisha J, your one-stop shop for everything you need to stay empowered and fabulous, and the book Unmarried Without Children, a must-read for anyone navigating life's journey with grace and purpose. Remember, ladies, as we walk this path of purpose, trust the process, stay rooted in faith, and know that God's timing is perfect. Until next time, keep shining, keep smiling, and keep trusting the process.